The IRS prohibited transaction rules, I believe, are best understood when we look to directly involve them in specific scenarios because we can better understand how they can apply to everyday life. I think before we look at the specific categories of prohibited transactions, we get an idea of kind of the reason behind them. So what does the IRS care about what I do with my retirement money? What do they care if I buy Apple stock or invest in my kid's business or invest in my business? Who cares? As long as the IRA goes up, they should be happy. Unfortunately, it's not the case. When these prohibited transaction rules were designed, there was no such thing as a Roth IRA. So everything was pre-tax, meaning you got that tax deduction up front, but the IRS assumed when you hit 70 that you're going to give some of that back to them. So they need to make sure that that money stays in the IRA. Because if you were able to just give all that money to your kids, your parents, or your spouse, then when you hit 70, you may have nothing left in your IRA, and the IRS may not get anything in the RMD. So they need to protect these, the distribution rules. That's really what they're concerned about. They're more concerned about getting their money than what you do with the money. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what drives their concern, is they want to make sure that there's enough money in your IRA when you hit 70 so that they can benefit from the requirement of distribution. For Roth IRA investors, I understand the analysis. They're saying, hey, I pay tax. What do you care? It's an after-tax account. I didn't make a tax deduction. What do you care if I buy stock in my business, my son's business, or Apple? And you know what? I think that's a valid point. And maybe if they Rothicize everything and everything becomes a Roth IRA, maybe they'll do away with the prohibited transaction rules. Maybe Congress will say, you know what? We don't need this stuff anymore because we have nothing to protect. Everything's a Roth. I don't know. Maybe there's other reasons why the prohibited transaction rules are in place. But the distribution rules are really the key, because if you see what a disqualified person is, which is essentially you and your lineal descendants and any entities associated with lineal descendants, they're trying to stop you from investing in family members who can benefit from your IRA and who could basically take your IRA so that you have nothing left when it comes to pay out the RMD. But if you're in a Roth IRA, why would the IRS care about the RMD? There's no RMDs, and everything's after tax. So I think that's a valid point. I got a lot of Roth IRA clients that tell me that, and I agree with them. I'm not sure the prohibited transaction rules have a lot of application for Roth people. They probably shouldn't, but they do. And the rules are the rules. So just to go through some of the application, under 4975C1A, B, C, D, E, and F, let's break it down. A, B, C are pretty simple. You can't, and I'm reading right off the code, lease property between an IRA and a disqualified person. You can't lend money between an IRA and a disqualified person. You can't provide services or goods between an IRA and a disqualified person. Pretty simple. You can come up with a million examples. The application of those rules are pretty simple. Generally, people don't screw those up. There's actually a case law, tax court memo, LSV commissioner. This guy took a salary from an IRA-owned company. It screwed up. Stupid. He actually tried to do something called a rollover business startup, but he didn't use a 401k, he used an IRA, and he triggered 4975C. Stupid. Most people don't do that. Most people, if they're going to violate these rules, are going D, E, and F. And honestly, they're not always, most of the time they're not trying to directly violate the rules. They're just getting caught up in a gray area, and the IRS is somewhat aggressive. Rollins v. Commissioner is a case I always go to. This guy, Mr. Rollins, was an accountant. He owned less than 10% of a company. Company needed money. He was not an employee, just a director. Took his 401k, lent the company money at prevailing interest rates. The IRS argued prohibited transaction. Tax court agreed. And they used D, E, and F and said, hey, Rollins, let's be honest. Company needed the money. You probably wouldn't have made the investment if you were a personal owner in the company. You didn't do it to benefit your IRA. You did it to benefit yourself. Violates 4975C1D, E, and F, which is self-dealing, conflict of interest. You're done. And you know that's probably right. The facts were fair on that one. But imagine your company didn't need the money. Imagine the company had money and Rollins just thought it was a great investment. Would their decision be different? Maybe. But again, this is a very gray area. 4975C1D talks about direct or indirect transfer to a disqualified person of income or assets of an IRA. So that indirect is key. E talks about dealing with the income or assets in our own interest. So for example, you use your IRA to invest in a fund managed by your son. Maybe your son benefits, maybe he's not. But indirectly, is your kid benefiting if your IRA is in that fund? Maybe there's more assets under management. He can then use that to attract more clients. Maybe he could take a profits interest or carried interest off your investment amount. I don't know. Again, gray area, but you open up that door. And that's what I try to tell my clients. If the IRS knocks on your door and says, hey, Adam, prove to me you didn't do a privileged transaction. The onus is not on the IRS, it's on me. I'm the taxpayer, I got to prove my case. Okay, the IRS doesn't have to prove anything. I got to prove it or disprove their claim. So I always tell clients, if you don't have a good argument, if they knock on your door, and you don't have bang, 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 something to say, no, this is why I did it, it's not prohibited, it's not self-dealing, it's not a conflict of interest, no indirect benefit, don't do it. Find something else to do. So you need to understand that, because they will nail your IRA for $500. If they feel there's a privileged transaction and you can't defend yourself, you're gone. They're going to nail your IRA, they're going to blow it up, 10% up to 100% tax penalty. You don't want to do it. There's no point. You can get a good return by just buying stocks or doing a different investment. You don't need to go crazy and do something prohibited. And the same goes with conflict of interest, 4975C1F, where maybe a situation is you have a job and the company needs money, or you have a startup, and in order for you to be the CFO of the startup, you need to invest 100 grand. But you don't have 100 grand personally, but you have it in your IRA. So are you doing that investment to help yourself out personally or to help your IRA? And that's the question. So you better have good facts and good support. If not, don't do it. Because if you get audited, and the audit risk is small, it's minute. This isn't your business. They're not IRS. They don't want to nail people's IRAs. The IRS aren't bad. They're human beings that work at the IRS. They don't want to blow up your IRA. I've been through IRS audits with retirement accounts. These are nice people you're dealing with. But if you break the law, they're going to look to the code. And it's almost like strict liability. They'll say, well, you broke it. You did a privileged transaction. I know you didn't mean it, but you did it. What do you want me to do? You broke the law. And I've seen them blow up people's IRAs for that. So, the IRS isn't out there with drones checking on what you're doing. But if they do audit your IRA, and it does happen, if you don't have supporting facts and you do something in the gray area, get ready to lose, because you will. So just be careful. Work with tax professionals. There's a lot of good stuff. The IRA Center on privileged transaction. Check out the videos. Send in some info requests. We'll get you set up and get you speaking to the right people about your specific scenario, so we can help you navigate the prohibited transaction rules.